I just had to basically talk to somebody, see. I do believe in God. I do believe in the Bible. I believe that he's my savior and everything. For the past week, I be listening to YM Melly.
A missing 13-year-old girl in Toledo tonight. Kei'Mani Latigue's father, 33-year-old Darnell Jones, is charged with her murder and abduction.
Police have confirmed they pulled her body from an abandoned East Toledo home today. Kei'Mani had not been seen alive for the last 6 days. Her family, friends, and community had been searching for any signs of her.
Oh my God, Kei'Mani!
Out of nowhere, inside my mind, something said, he's promoting you to go to hell.
Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, hi, hello, welcome. I am Sherrilyn, and I am so glad you found me. You're probably gonna want to leave right now because that's just me. All right, okay. What else do I say? If you're not new here, welcome back. Thank you for staying for like all of these moments. Okay, I love and I appreciate you so much. We have a lot to get into today. Today's episode I know is going to be super emotional. So let's just all take a minute. Gonna do a riddle, get some grounding going on, and we'll get right into it. Today's riddle is: what is orange and sounds like a parrot? All right, while you guys think about that, I have a quick message for you. All right, you guys know that I love a little escape from reality, especially during heavy research days, and mobile games are always my go-to. And thanks to today's sponsor, Scatter Slots, I have a new fun escape to add to my roster. It's a fun, free casino-style game, which means I'm not spending my own money, but I still get all the satisfaction of hitting jackpots, unlocking new slots, and then also progressing through different fantasy-themed worlds. The graphics are great. It's not your basic fruits and diamonds. Each world is very beautifully designed, from mysterious fantasy castles to bright, colorful fruit frenzy. And on top of that, the soundtrack is just chef's kiss. It's like I'm gonna say like relaxing classic composer with a modern spin. The best part is that you can play anywhere, anytime, whether you're online or offline, which I love, especially for like flights or long car rides. More flights though, because I really need to like distract myself in the air. Plus, there is adventure mode for solo players or tournament mode if you want to like get competitive and play with other people. There's even a way that you can play with friends by joining clans, and then you can team up, defeat bosses, and then win massive rewards together. If you want to check it out, you can download Scatter Slots for free using the link in my description or scan the QR code, and you'll get a huge bonus of 12 million free coins. That is a lot of spins to get started. Once again, you can download Scatter Slots for free using the link in my description or scan the QR code on my screen. Thank you again so much, Scatter Slots, for sponsoring today's video. Let's get started. I do want to warn everybody, like I said, today's case is upsetting. It's heartbreaking. I mean, they all are, but it involves the murder of a child, and there's always that like added element of just like emotional like turmoil and heartbreak. I've shared this a lot on my channel. I avoid a lot of cases that have to do with children because it is just so devastating and taxing, and I feel so like helpless that I can't do more. That being said, I mean, I know how important they are. It is a story. They all are stories that deserve to be told, and especially today's. This involves a 13-year-old named Kei'Mani Latigue, which has become a name in the headlines. I recognize her beautiful, adorable little face, and I didn't know the story behind it until this was suggested to me by my researcher. And so I want to share it and, you know, let you know that this is more than name in the headlines, and she absolutely deserves justice. This is a case that's currently unfolding right now, where there has been an arrest. We'll get through all of that, but this is a relatively new case. So on Monday, March 24th, 2025, Kei'Mani's body was found in an abandoned home in East Toledo after she had been missing for just about a week. Darnell Jones, has since been arrested and charged with her abduction and murder. And Darnell Jones is actually her biological father. That being said, this case it's messy. The information coming out has been inconsistent, obviously emotionally charged, and in some places also contradictory. So we're gonna go through kind of, again, it's hard to like debunk certain things because we've got like online rumors, we have disjointed interviews, very complicated family dynamics, and that's made it very difficult to, you know, try to find the truth through all of the noise. Like I said, though, my researcher and I have been sorting through documents, media coverage, social media interviews. Shout out to Susie. She has done such amazing work here. Has actually even met with Kei'Mani's family. So we're trying to give you the clearest and most compassionate version of Kei'Mani's story that we possibly can, because beneath all of the confusion here is a child who should still be here. So let's start with who Kei'Mani Latigue was. Kei'Mani Royale Caprice Latigue was born on March 28, 2011 in Toledo, Ohio, to parents Tiara, Kasten, and Darnell Jones, also known as Darnell Ogletree. She was just days away from celebrating her 14th birthday when she disappeared. Kei'Mani was the oldest of 4 children on her mother's side, with 2 younger brothers and a younger sister. And on her father's side, she had 2 half-sisters as well. At the time of her disappearance, Kei'Mani was living with her maternal grandmother, Dorothy Latigue, in Toledo. She was in the 7th grade at Spring Elementary School, where she was known for her bright personality and academic success. She had made the honor roll and was even set to receive a kindness award the very week that she went missing. Like so many teens her age, Kei'Mani had recently started posting on TikTok. She was doing, you know, the dances, smiling, just being a kid. And through those videos, it was very clear that she loved to move, express herself, and connect with others. Those who knew her describe her as sweet, smart, funny, loving, and kind. She was a child who craved attention and by all accounts gave it just as freely. With all that being said, Kei'Mani's life wasn't easy. She was what I guess some would call a latchkey kid. I remember my mom using that phrase like back in the day. And so it's often described as like a child who's like left to care for themselves while their, you know, parent is usually working. And in Kei'Mani's case, she was left to care for herself while her grandmother worked overnight shifts from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. So that meant Kei'Mani was frequently home alone, responsible for getting herself up, out the door, and to school in the mornings. And while she appeared to be doing her best, keeping up with school, trying to enjoy the little joys of growing up, there were clearly vulnerabilities in her life that left her unprotected. Now, when tragedy strikes, I think we could all agree here that the internet has a tendency to look for somebody to blame. I don't even think internet, that's just human nature. And in the case of Kei'Mani Latigue, a lot of that blame has been directed to her mother, Tiara. Now, like I've said, we listened to interviews, looked through social media posts, and from everything that we've gathered, my research and I believe Tiara truly cared for her daughter. At the end of the day, this is her daughter. Her story, it's messy, it's complicated, but it also is a painfully familiar example of how the system can trap people, especially mothers of color, in a cycle that becomes nearly impossible to escape. This is not new information. This is the stark, harsh reality of how we need to do better. Tiara is now 35 years old. She is the eldest of 5 children born to Dorothy Latigue, Kei'Mani's grandmother. And based on the math, Tiara herself was born shortly after Dorothy's 15th birthday. Okay, so Dorothy, Kei'Mani's grandmother, who had custody of her at the time of the disappearance, was 15 years old when Tiara was born, okay? At the time that Tiara gave birth to Kei'Mani, she was living in Cleveland, okay? So she wasn't in Toledo, but she did return to Toledo to deliver her daughter. And in an interview with Savage Royalty, she explained her reasoning for that, saying, "I only came here to allow my mother to see her grandbaby be born. I am her first child, and I was told that I was supposed to have been aborted. So the fact that she still gave me life when she really didn't have the means to do so, I wanted to give her that gift." Meaning, you know, she came up and wanted her mother to see her grandchild be born. According to Tiara, though, after Kei'Mani was born, she never got the chance to take her baby home. In that same interview, she said, "They took her from the hospital from me. I never got to take her home." When she was asked why, Tiara alleged that she was accused of things she says weren't true, like being a drug user, living with strangers, and neglecting her child medically. In a separate interview with Black CEO Media, she doubled down, saying, "They told me that if I came back up to the hospital, my daughter would not be there, and that if I showed up there, they would charge me with criminal trespassing." Tiara also claimed that she was later charged, not with criminal trespassing, but with neglect because she didn't return to the hospital, which she says she was told not to do. I think this could be very easy for people to pass judgment. Again, I don't think just warning in the comments, if you are white, not our place to say anything about this situation because we don't know. We haven't lived that. And it's not, an assumption that had she gone up there, nothing might have happened because it's her mom. She legally has rights. No, we've seen this time and time and time again. So I don't doubt that in her mind, she felt like she was doing the right thing because she's like, if I go in there, I'm going to get arrested. What good am I going to be at this point? Then after, when she leaves, she's charged with neglect. It's so upsetting. So over the years, Tiara remained in Cleveland, where she became a mother of 4, and as of now, she only has retained custody of her youngest child, a daughter that was born in 2021. Tiara does have a criminal record, and we're not here to gloss over that. Her past isn't spotless. She would probably be the first to admit that, but it's also worth noting that based on court records, her legal troubles did seem to stop around 2018, and the fact that she still has custody of her youngest child, I do suggest that means that she has truly done her best to turn her life around, okay? We don't all have spotless pasts here. There are so many factors that can contribute to a situation like this, and just owning it and making an effort to change just shows resilience, I think, to begin with. So want to put all of that out there. Even on her social media, it's not overly active, but it did show a woman who loves her children, especially Kei'Mani. On May 30th, 2020, she posted photos of her 3 kids with the caption, "My heart screams for you," with a broken heart emoji, sad face, crying face. And then on July 6th of that same year, she shared a series of photos with Kei'Mani writing, "Relishing in the presence of my greatest accomplishment, Mommy loves you," and then established 2011. Obviously, social media isn't always a full reflection of reality, but to me, it doesn't seem performative, it looks like love and loss. Between May 2021 and March 2025, Tiara barely posted anything personal at all. There was just 3 public posts in 4 years. So it did seem like she just kind of stepped away from sharing her life online. But when her daughter went missing, she came back on March 18th, 2025, just days before Kei'Mani's body would be found. Tiara shared a screenshot of the 13 ABC News segment. It was a missing persons alert for Kei'Mani, and the caption said, "Y'all share this everywhere you can. My daughter is missing from my mother's house." I understand people are going to have questions. I do too. But I do want to just reiterate again, I do not believe that Tiara is the villain in this story. I believe she's another mother who got caught in the system that didn't give her a second chance. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't think the real danger came from her. I think it came from people much closer to where Kei'Mani was supposed to be safe. Next, we need to talk about Dorothy Latigue, Kei'Mani's maternal grandmother. Dorothy is 50 years old and had legal custody of Kei'Mani for approximately the last year. According to multiple sources, though, Kei'Mani had actually been living with her for far longer, since around the age of 8. This was just the legal custody that she had. This in itself just shows kind of the contradictory between who we're talking about and just inconsistent statements. So in public interviews, Dorothy has stated that she's had Kei'Mani since she was 9. Kei'Mani's mother, Tiara, says that she thinks it's closer to when Kei'Mani was like 6 or 7. And then if that's not confusing enough, the executive director of Lucas County Children's Services has admitted that the agency had no official record of when Kei'Mani actually came under Dorothy's care. So they will get more into like why like eyes were on Kei'Mani, or supposed to be rather. She definitely, there's lapses of time here and overlapping. The important thing to know here, though, is that the agency responsible for the welfare of children in the county doesn't have a clear record of when or how custody of Kei'Mani changed hands. Before getting into this next little part here, I do want to be clear, having a criminal record doesn't automatically make somebody unfit to raise a child. People grow, people change, and sometimes the system just punishes like survival. But in Dorothy Latigue's case, in my personal opinion, we're not talking about a one-time offense. She has a documented criminal history that spans over 2 decades across multiple states, and the history of charges include assault, domestic violence, forgery, theft, and aggravated burglary. Some of the most notable of these charges include in 2002, she pled guilty to aggravated assault with a deadly weapon in Phoenix, Arizona. In 2009, she was accused of cutting a live-in boyfriend with a razor and hitting him with a candle holder in a domestic violence incident. That case was dismissed after the victim failed to appear in court, though. In 2015, she was charged with aggravated burglary for allegedly breaking into a home and attacking a woman. Again, this case was also dropped when the victim didn't show up. And then in 2019, she was cited for failing to provide her information to police during an investigation involving gunshots. In addition to this, 2 of Dorothy's daughters have publicly stated that they were removed from her custody as children and raised in the foster care system. So all of this I'm saying because it leads to a difficult and very necessary question, like how did somebody with this history, somebody who's lost custody of their own children, end up with legal custody of Kei'Mani? You've got to put everything together, between the violent past, the missing documentation, the fact that Kei'Mani was reportedly left home alone overnight while Dorothy worked from 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., how the system determines that this is the safest and most stable place for her to live. And while we don't obviously have the answers for that because we're not working there, it's an important question worth asking. Now let's talk about Darnell Ogletree, who currently goes by Darnell Jones. He is 33 years old and, according to all available records and sources, is the biological father of Kei'Mani Latigue. My understanding is there is some confusion online about whether Darnell is actually Kei'Mani's father, but that confusion comes from a single interview that was given by Dorothy. There's no legal disputes, corrections from investigators, or statements from the family other than Dorothy that has cast any doubt on his paternity. So for the purpose of the case and, this video, we're going to go with what's documented, and that's that Darnell is the father. He lives in Toledo, Ohio, just 3 miles or about a 10-minute drive from where Kei'Mani lived with her grandmother. He also has multiple charges involving violence, weapons possession, threats to law enforcement, and even arson. Here are just a few of the more serious allegations on his record. In August 2011, he was charged with arson after allegedly setting a business on fire. That case was later dropped, but he was reportedly seen with another defendant at the scene. In August 2017, felonious assault, Darnell allegedly attacked a man, his name was Titus, by smashing a car alternator into his face. This victim required over 20 stitches, and then this case ended up being dismissed when the victim did not appear in court. In May 2019, while he's in jail, Darnell threatened to shoot an officer in the head after he was released. He was found guilty, sentenced to 30 days, and then ordered to undergo a mental health evaluation and treatment through Unison Health. In July 2019, there was a domestic violence charge. He was found guilty of grabbing his then wife by the neck and holding her over a second-story balcony and served 180 days in jail. How in the world? Oh my God, that's not even a year. Half a year. I can't. In August 2022, he was arrested for firing a gun outside of a home on Main Street. Police also found drug paraphernalia in his bag, but again, this case was eventually dismissed. As we can see, these charges didn't result in long sentences, but I do feel like, the nature of them, especially the violent ones, are deeply disturbing and paint a picture of a man with a dangerous pattern of behavior. He clearly has questionable impulse control and a history of threatening others, including his own partners and quote-unquote loved ones. Despite all of this, he continued to have access to Kei'Mani, and that access eventually led to Kei'Mani's death. And Darnell Jones, the man who's, should be protecting her father, his baby girl, is now accused of taking her life. That in itself is just so hard to say and process. I've said this before in videos. There's moments of in order to get through things like this and not even being directly involved, you have to disassociate a little to present everything. But there's always constantly going back and realizing that this was a little girl, a real life, not a story. I don't know how many times I've said that in videos, but I just think it's such an important reminder that these are not stories. This is real life. And when you look at Kei'Mani's life in a whole, it's devastating. Before she was even reported missing and ultimately found murdered, it seems like she's, was never even really given a chance of what that stability and true comfort meant. And that in itself is so heartbreaking. According to records, from infancy, she was in the care of others and kind of bounced around. And I'm not saying this is from a place of judgment at all. And I also don't want to without divulging too much information or putting any of my loved ones on blast or anything like that. I can relate to kind of feeling you're bouncing around and maybe not even knowing what stability is for a certain period and just kind of yearning for that. I do think though, families, relationships, all of that stuff is so complicated. And then, just reflecting back on it, it's the little ones, right? That you have to think about all while we feel like we're doing our best, I wanted to say that because I don't want anybody I just do want to hammer home the idea here that I think we're all doing our best, and stability is complicated. Not really complicated, but I feel like people might think I'm making no sense here because I'm spiraling, but that they're doing the right thing, and they very well could be. There are so many layers to each and every family. I mean, I'm sure you're thinking about your own or somebody that you know and how much truly goes on. But these cases are really raw reminders of the severity of this situation, of just kind of being they'll be fine. She's fine. Because that's not always the case. So going back to infancy for Kei'Mani, according to multiple sources, she was placed with Tiara's godmother, a woman named Monique Taylor, sometime around when she was 9 months old. By the time she was 18 months old, she was officially in state recognized kinship care through Ohio's Department of Job and Family Services. For those unfamiliar, kinship care is a system where children are placed with relatives or close family friends when their parents are unable to care for them. And according to Ohio.gov, kinship caregivers provide stability for Ohio's children and help preserve a sense of familiarity when a child is removed from their parents. It's meant to be a better alternative for traditional foster care. I know that there are so many opinions, very valid, heated emotions when it comes to foster care, especially from people who have been in the system. Again, I think we reserve that space for people who actually have been there and have real life experience with that to weigh in. I often thought about Gabriel Fernandez in this case, which is another case that I filmed it. I didn't end up publishing it because I couldn't get through that case. I did, but it's a hard watch. This is already a hard watch. You get it. But we'll go through here to understand like a little bit more based on records and stuff like that when it comes to Kei'Mani's case specifically, why people feel that way, and then we can understand where the rage can come from here, okay? Now, around the same time that Kei'Mani entered the system, her mother, Tiara, was arrested on robbery charges in December 2012. So with Kei'Mani already in Monique Taylor's care, this arrest likely contributed to the state's decision to like formalize that placement and keep her separated from her mother. Kei'Mani allegedly lived with Monique until she was around 8 years old. And then, according to Tiara, Monique abruptly dropped Kei'Mani off with all of her belongings on the front porch of her grandmother, Dorothy Latigue's house. So at around 8 or 9 years old, Kei'Mani began living with Dorothy, who eventually gained legal custody. In March 2025, just last month, if you're watching from the future, we're in 2025, Kei'Mani was living on Elm Street in North Toledo with Dorothy, while her mom was in Cleveland, about 2 hours away. It's been alleged that the two reportedly had very little contact. Some family members are, pointing their fingers at Tiara for her absence, but there are also others that have said that Dorothy may have played a role in keeping the two estranged. Kei'Mani's father, Darnell, appears to have been more present. Even Dorothy said that he was in Kei'Mani's life quite regularly, and his now ex-girlfriend even supported that timeline. Even Kei'Mani's educational history shows a clearer picture of somebody who was being bounced between places, guardians, and even schools. According to district officials, she attended 6 different elementary schools. And again, this is, I think, is really important, showing that inconsistency and how it can be incredibly destabilizing for a child. And while there's one source, Dorothy, describes Kei'Mani as having behavioral issues, I think that it's important to put into context that she attended 6 different elementary schools by this, in her short little life, and behavioral struggles often are symptoms, not causes, right? They're survival responses to instability, neglect, even trauma. That is much more common than it just being I don't know, they've lived a very perfect life. They just have behavioral issues. Usually when you peel things back, there's a root cause of that. What's really upsetting in this, especially when you hear from the staff and students at Spring Elementary, it seems that finally, when Kei'Mani had gone to that school, she found a place that she felt safe. She was on the honor roll, and she was set to receive a kindness award. Having not obviously been in Kei'Mani's life to understand her thoughts and obviously her feelings, we can't say for sure, but it does sound like teachers and school in whatever capacity was kind of, I think, the place that Kei'Mani did feel the safest, I would say. One of her former teachers has come forward publicly sharing a little bit of heartbreaking insight of what was happening behind closed doors. She did an interview where she said that Kei'Mani had expressed some things to her and other teachers in the school. Also other adult staff, peers of hers, even the school bus driver, that things were not going well at home. She also describes herself and others seeing visible injuries on Kei'Mani, which led them to report what they saw to Children's Services multiple times. Her statement was Lucas County Children's Services was notified on several different occasions that Kei'Mani may be at risk of child abuse in the home, and she says it fell on deaf ears. She said, "Our calls were not heard, our voices were not heard." Obviously, once this information came out after her disappearance and finding her body, there's public outrage. And so on April 8th, Lucas County Children's Services had a press conference to address the mounting questions of whether they failed to protect Kei'Mani and or, more specifically, whether like they just ignored all of the very obvious warning signs that were coming in. According to the executive director, Randall Muth, he said that LCCS, Lucas County Children's Services, had only 3 reports on file regarding Kei'Mani since 2011. He said a single report was made on December 8th, 2023, and 2 reports related to the same incident were filed on March 21st, 2024. Those 3 reports are the only documented concerns from the last 14 years, which in itself raises questions like when we know that there were multiple calls from schools, like the school staff itself, the bus driver, and then others like parents of her peers who are coming and concerned about this. And all of them allegedly calling and reporting seeing visible injuries. So like how are there only 3 in 2 years, like the 2023-2024? What's even more upsetting is that Mr. Muth confirmed in this statement that the last official involvement, so that's not just like filing or having something on like an incident filed, report filed, but involvement that LCCS had with Kei'Mani before those reports was back in 2011 when she was first placed with Monique Taylor. From what I understand, he couldn't comment on like what exactly triggered that like initial removal from her mother, but obviously, the timeline aligns with Tiara's 2011 arrest and then her claims that Kei'Mani was taken from her from the hospital like right after her birth. So that was the last time that they got involved to the capacity of doing what was best for Kei'Mani and like removing her from a harmful or what they deemed a harmful situation. So with those most recent reports, the ones filed in 2023, 2024, LCCS, they did visit Dorothy's home following each report. But according to Mr. Muth, the agency found no evidence that would justify at this point removing Kei'Mani from Dorothy's home. They said that these were allegations of excessive discipline. So instead of removing Kei'Mani, they actually said this. They offered guidance, advising Dorothy on what qualifies as appropriate discipline, and then referred her to family support services, including Ohio Rise, which is a specialized care program for children with complex behavioral and mental health needs. But this is where it gets infuriating. So Dorothy also was interviewed and explained herself the guidance she says that LCCS gave her. She did this in an interview with WTOL, and she said they stated there's a way to chastise children, come on, Sherrilyn, children without physically harming them. You need to whip them on their behind, nowhere else. So she didn't have like bruises all over. That part right there, that's part of the quote, you guys. So she didn't have like bruises all over. Chilling. It just kind of like makes you think like when you're like that comfortable to say that part in an interview on the news of like what potentially was going on. Like if you just like felt that secure, I'm not making sense, but you know what I mean? Like, that's what they said. So when Mr. Muth was asked about this statement during a press conference, he clarified that LCCS does not endorse corporal punishment. However, under Ohio law, corporal punishment is still technically legal, and the agency is allowed to provide guidance on how to do it safely. His words were, "We do not recommend the use of any corporal punishment. However, Ohio law does state that it is a decision reserved for the parents. We do provide guidance on how to do that and would say to use, if you have to do that, use an open hand on a non-sensitive area." So essentially, we don't support it, but if you're going to do it this way. Fuck my life. I'll show you corporal punishment. This is so disturbing. I think one of the most disturbing and infuriating parts for me is like the amount of like quotes that are on record from themselves, right? Like This isn't like, oh yeah, we were told this and it's hearsay. Like, no, these are actual quotes. It's so upsetting. And essentially, like, Kei'Mani did everything right. And even like the adults, like in her life at school, like trying. We again saw this with Gabriel's case because his teachers were like every week, constantly, like, what more do you need besides us like validating this and saying that we believe this? We're seeing the injuries ourselves. And then you go there and you're like, oh, you know what? We're going to actually teach you how to do this so you don't leave those marks for the teachers to see and keep calling us, okay? I don't get this. I do not understand this, and I feel like that whole statement should haunt us for the rest of our lives because, people will say, oh, like they slipped through the cracks. Like I'm so freaking sick of that too, by the way. Like, yeah, that's just, somebody who slipped through the cracks. No. Kei'Mani was just pushed right on through them. Like every sign was there. Everything you needed was there to see what was going on. And we're like, regardless of whether like who's to blame and pointing fingers here at like the get-go of the upbringing or who's telling what story, like that's irrelevant at this point because Kei'Mani did everything right, went to adults that she trusted. And I would arguably say, like, based on what I'm seeing, like with interviews and statements and records, the adults that she approached also did what they could. You have to, at the end of the day, be realistic. Even the teacher in Gabriel's case was like, of course I wanted. I know people are going to be like, why don't you just take that kid? Like, of course I wanted to do that, but what use would that have been? I'm kidnapping somebody and I'm going to be of no use to them. I can at least at this point still feel like I can continue fighting, continue doing the best. You know that there's a real danger there, and obviously you are thinking worst case scenario, but then in the back of your mind you're thinking like, no, I will, like they've got to listen eventually, right? That's what you'd think. So what we're going to go through now is obviously the hardest part of all of this, and it's the timeline of the events, like leading to the discovery of Kei'Mani. So her disappearance and discovery. Once again, there's contradictions here. We've been missing pieces, details that don't add up. But what we know right now is on Sunday, March 16th, Darnell brings Kei'Mani back to Dorothy's home. Late Sunday night into early Monday morning, so March 17th into 18th, Kei'Mani reportedly calls Darnell saying she's scared to be home alone and that she was hearing noises outside. This is according to Darnell. So Darnell with his cousin goes over to sit with her. He claims that they stayed there till about 12:30 a.m. Tuesday, March 18th, Dorothy arrives home from her overnight shift at around 9:30 a.m., she says, and she finds the house in what she describes complete disarray. She said the front door is unlocked, Kei'Mani's glasses, keys, and clothes were scattered. The gas stove was on, but not lit. So she said that she could smell gas when she came in. She calls the school and is told that Kei'Mani never arrived. She said she called Kei'Mani's phone when she found out that she wasn't at school. She said it went straight to voicemail. She called Darnell to see if he was with her. He said she wasn't. And then at 11:55 a.m., she reported Kei'Mani missing to the Toledo police. Now, no Amber Alert was issued. Authorities said that she didn't meet the criteria because she was believed to have left with a family member and there wasn't enough information on a suspect or a vehicle. Okay, so once again, like missing child, particularly a child of color, is labeled a possible runaway, despite the fact that like all of her personal belongings, including her underwear and her pajamas that were like just like in disarray inside the house, she's never ran away before. Like by all accounts, she's described as a very responsible child, like checks in, never vanished like this, but like no, doesn't meet the criteria. It sounds like by Friday, March 21st, word was spreading of her disappearance within the community, and it was like more like community members like going out there doing like searches themselves with like friends and families and volunteers. They're hanging flyers, canvassing the neighborhood. Tiara also joined the search party. Allegedly, Dorothy was absent from this, according to family friend sources. Allegedly, Darnell also joins a search, but later that day, he calls his then girlfriend and asks her to turn off the security cameras in her home. When she asks why, he said, because I didn't come home till 5 o'clock that morning. So she says she turns them off. She pretends to turn them off, but actually didn't. So Darnell is actually questioned that same day. His girlfriend at the time was also taken in. And after she returns home, a family member tells her that Darnell brought something into the house and hid it under the basement stairs. So she calls the police to tell them this. Officers execute a search warrant, and then they find a rubber bed liner believed to be from an SUV, and then also Darnell's muddy work boots. Once Darnell gets word that these items are gone, he flees. So now we're moving into Sunday, March 23rd. An abduction charge is filed against Darnell, and that warrant alleged that he removed Kei'Mani from her guardian's home without consent and was the last known person to see her and gave inconsistent statements to police. Surveillance footage, phone records, and then witness accounts also, I guess, supported these allegations that are in this warrant. The following day, Monday, March 24th, just 4 days before her 14th birthday, Kei'Mani's body was discovered. She was found on the second floor of a burned, dilapidated, abandoned house on Miami Street in East Toledo, just blocks from a residential neighborhood. After her body was discovered, Dorothy was briefly taken into protective custody. According to her, this was for her own safety due to the mounting public anger and online outrage that was unfolding. Dorothy also made a very unsettling allegation. She claims that Darnell confessed to her, telling her directly that he was the one who killed Kei'Mani and that he R-worded her. Gotta make sure you were following YouTube guidelines here. And somebody made a comment the other day about changing words and that how it, takes away from the severity and hurts victims. And it's as a victim of abuse, because that's specifically what we were talking about in that, people would rather their story be told and not get flagged and suppressed by an algorithm. So you just kind of have to, yes, it does sound insensitive, but it's not taking away from the severity. It's to keep the story out there. Now, from what I know, that statement from Dorothy, that allegation has yet to be confirmed by investigators at this point. There's no public confession that has been released at this time. So after Kei'Mani's body was discovered and positively identified, the charges against Darnell Jones escalated. So in addition to that original abduction warrant, authorities formally charged him with the murder and felonious assault in Kei'Mani's death. According to that warrant, the case against him includes surveillance footage, phone records, and witness statements as well. By the time that this is happening, though, remember, Darnell was already on the run. So while investigators are trying to track him down, he calls his girlfriend at the time and tells her where he is. Thankfully, she passed the information along to law enforcement, which led them to finding him in Columbus, Ohio. So the day after Kei'Mani's body was discovered, Columbus police, who had received a bolo the day before, be on the lookout for Darnell, located him along with SWAT team. There's body cam footage of this. It shows Darnell had taken steps to alter his appearance, all of his hair and facial hair were completely shaved. And during this, altercation, he's holding a walkie-talkie and then concealing his hand in one of his pockets, which was a gun. And so as the officers are approaching him, he tells them, kill me. So it was he was not cooperating with the commands of take your hands out. He was I just want to die. So this standoff, I guess, is less than 10 seconds. The officer tells him to show his hands. He refuses, and he was shot multiple times. I guess you would say in the safe areas. I don't know what the frick you want to say, but the arm, leg, although he was also shot in the left side of his chest. He was immediately treated at the scene like for his injuries. And I guess at this time, according to police, he was repeatedly saying like, I don't want to live. And one of the officers that was like treating him right away was like, listen, like there's nothing's ever that bad, like, you know, like, that you don't want to live. And he's like, no, it is, like, it's that bad. So Darnell survived the shooting. He was hospitalized. I believe that like at the moment that he was taken in, like it was quite critical condition. He was stabilized, and then he was taken into custody of Columbus police. Not long after Darnell's arrested, a whole other controversy started unfolding online, and it wasn't about the crime itself or what happened to Kei'Mani, but it was about how certain information was shared with the public. And again, this is like one of my biggest pet peeves, when two like opposing like departments or I guess like state officials like start having like a pissing match. So on March 25th, the coroner confirmed that Kei'Mani Latigue's cause of death was multiple incised wounds of the neck. Her death was officially ruled a homicide. After that, a man named Brian Steele, who's a spokesperson for the Fraternal Order of Police in Columbus, made a public statement referencing deeply sensitive and specific claims about what had happened to Kei'Mani. I don't want to repeat the details just because this still has not gone to trial. It's out there, it's easy to find, but I don't feel comfortable doing so. Like, we're talking about like removal of like some body parts and, you know, like abuse that nobody, especially a child, should ever endure. It's so horrific and graphic. My understanding, though, is these claims have not been confirmed by investigators in Toledo, okay? And no additional charges, including those suggested in Steele's statement, have been filed at this time. So just for that reason, like, I don't like regurgitating something, and it's already a mess right now, right? Because Toledo police chief responded very publicly, and he said that Brian Steele's comments were unprofessional and potentially harmful to the investigation. And that in itself is like the most important part right here. So in an interview with 13 Action News, Chief Darnell is very clearly unhappy and basically saying like this information is like an unverified and can hinder the ability to confirm or eliminate suspects, right? Also, it can expose families to trauma that they're not even prepared for yet, like that we haven't even like sat down and tried to personally and like sensitively compassionately, I don't know what the frick I'm trying to, you guys understand what I'm trying to say, right? Express this to the families to like warn them. So his quote was, "Those are details we would never release in an investigation." He said, "And how insensitive is that? He has no idea if the family even knows those details." He also confirmed that at the time of that public statement, the coroner had not even completed the autopsy. So while we do know that it is now complete and her death has been ruled a homicide, at that point of those statements being released, it hadn't been. And yeah, I totally agree with that. Then once Brian Steele heard this, he got all butthurt and he started defending his comments, and he was like, that information came directly from officers on the scene, and accused the Toledo police of selective outrage, and finished off by saying, "A simple thank you, CPD, would have sufficed. God bless Kei'Mani." This type of stuff just like drives me crazy, because like at the end of the day, this is not about like credit or who deserves a thank you. It's about like protecting the integrity of a case, an investigation, and also respecting the family, and just like, in my opinion, just basic compassion and, you know, keeping Kei'Mani at like the forefront of everything as well. I don't doubt those details, you know, like are accurate, but I do personally feel like it was, you know, definitely shared prematurely before an investigation was complete. And like the police chief said, like details that, you know, could very easily compromise an investigation. That being said, I do think that transparency is important, but I also believe in timing as well, and sensitivity. And then remembering at the center of this was a child, and there's clearly a lot of pain and animosity already between the family to begin with. Darnell has already made his first court appearance. It was on April 18th, and at this moment, he is being held on $4 million bond. Also, according to affidavits filed in Toledo Municipal Court, he's also admitted to police that he inflicted the wounds that caused Kei'Mani's death.
Kei'Mani Latigue's death. Silver Barker, she was in the courtroom this morning. So tell us a little bit about what was said in court.
Yeah, Jeff, a Toledo police detective says in court documents that Darnell Jones Ogletree admitted to killing Kei'Mani in that abandoned house on Miami Street. And we now know the coroner says she was killed with a bladed instrument. Jones was pushed into the courtroom in a wheelchair, wearing a special vest. His hands cuffed as Judge Nicole Corey read the charges.
The allegations of the crime are not only the most serious, but some of the most heinous in nature.
His bond is $4 million. A murder charge accounts for half of that amount. The abduction charge is another $1 million and another $1 million for felonious assault. The judge says she considered multiple factors.
The court has to consider the nature and circumstances of the crime, have to consider whether a weapon was involved, have to consider any potential weight of evidence against the defendant, have to consider defendant's family ties, financial resources, record of conviction.
That includes a public safety assessment. That is a measurement of whether a defendant is a flight risk. The judge said Jones scored a 4 on a scale from 1 to 6, with 6 being the most risk.
It's okay, he was shot.
I understand that. Where is the injury?
I got a bullet in the back.
So obviously there is still like the whole legal case involving Darnell that is still unfolding, but it's clear like questions do not stop with him. Again, I want to be sensitive to this case while also making it known that I do hope investigators are taking a serious look at some of the things that are being alleged by family and friends of Kei'Mani without compromising what I hope is a further investigation. I will say that on Thursday, April 3rd, a video posted by MTGV Crime Podcast revealed details that were pulled from the police crime report that hadn't been circulated. And according to their video, there were things found near her residence, Dorothy's residence. There was a pillow with strands of hair that were found in the outside trash of Dorothy's house. Also a pair of underwear that were near the north side of the house. And then perhaps the most damning, Darnell reportedly asked Dorothy for permission to visit the home that night when Kei'Mani texted him saying that she had heard noises, which contradicted Dorothy's claim that he just showed up. So while Darnell is saying that he had, that it was Kei'Mani that had told him that she was scared and that showed up, Dorothy was saying that she wasn't aware of that there was never, she was not aware and never gave him permission to go there. And this is saying otherwise. The report also notes that somebody else was living in the home at the time, not just Dorothy and Kei'Mani, which both of them had claimed to the LCC investigators. According to locals, friends, and even family members, they're that's not true. Multiple sources have alleged that Dorothy routinely let other adults, some with quite violent pasts, stay at the house, including individuals with histories of drug use, incarceration. I want to be clear though, also, these individuals have not been charged in connection to Kei'Mani's death. But I do think that there, are valid, serious questions, to be had here, especially with Dorothy claiming that no one else lived there. If you're wanting to be as helpful in an investigation and getting justice, you would want to lay out absolutely everything. Again, we don't have full reports here. Even if you're reading arrest affidavits and warrants and stuff like that, there is information pertaining to this case that is going to be held for trial. So that's also why this can get really confusing, and I don't want to be a part of just further fueling the online rage here. Well, yes, I understand and it's valid and I'm upset as well. We at the end of the day will not know everything that investigators have until trial. What I will say though, based on some of the family's own statements and public social media posts, they are upset with Dorothy. Kei'Mani's older cousin, Kat, said that Dorothy actually pulled a gun on her when she was trying to search for Kei'Mani. This is her allegations. I'm not saying it's true or it's not. I'm just saying what's been said. It's also been alleged that Dorothy showed reporters screenshots of like ransom messages while they were looking for Kei'Mani, but Tiara and other family members believe those messages were faked and, in their opinion, to deflect suspicion. Tiara, Kei'Mani's mother, has gone on record saying that she believes her own mother is involved, not necessarily in the murder itself, but covering it up. In her words, she said, "I think they planned after. I don't know what went wrong, but whatever went wrong, after it went wrong, they set a plan on how they were going to try to get rid of my daughter." Tiara also claimed that the abandoned house where Kei'Mani's body was found once belonged to her grandmother, Ruby Latigue, though we have not been able to like verify any ownership records. This is her allegation. When Tiara was also interviewed by Savage Royalty, she also went on the record sharing like how shocked she was at Darnell's alleged involvement. She said, "I've known this man since I was 19 years old. If somebody would have come to me and told me that this was something he was into or could have done, I would have taken heed. I've never heard anything like that. Even my cousins who went to school with him said he was a square. I wasn't expecting him to have anything to do with this, but now I just can't put anything past anybody." And then finally, another thing that caused like a lot of public outrage was the photo that was shared with police, the original photo that was shared of Kei'Mani with police, like to circulate through the media, and that photo was outdated. A lot of locals criticized like the family for this, saying like, why was there not a more recent photo that was used during these like very crucial times and like early hours of this search? So it wasn't until that pressure like was mounting that a more current image was provided. And I would totally agree. Like when you look at the two, so much can change, like especially in those years from like 10 to like 14, 13, you do change like so much. So yeah, that was another thing. There's a lot of emotion going here. Understandably, I get it. I get it. At the end of the day, there are a lot of rumors circulating around this case, and we don't know. Some of them may be true, some of them may not be. What we do know, though, for certain, is that Kei'Mani Latigue was failed. This poor, beautiful baby girl was failed. She was failed by some of the adults in her life. She was failed by the system that ignored multiple red flags. And it's so sad because it's clear that her death has deeply impacted the city of Toledo. The amount of people, like, volunteers and strangers that have come out and just like cared for this baby so much, having not even met her. On Friday, March 28th, 2025, the city, they did something, truly beautiful. They celebrated what would have been her 14th birthday. So the community, friends, classmates, even her neighbors, strangers, they all came together to honor her. And they threw a party in the park. There was a parade, I believe, a candlelight vigil was outside the home that the body was found. And that's another thing. The home that she was found is going to be demolished, in the process of going to be completely demolished. It's also turned into like a memorial site that people like every day have gone to like visit and pay their respects. From what I understand, there is a volunteer who goes like every day and makes sure that, like the flowers and everything are, kept. And I think they're in the process of moving it maybe across the street or like close by to another spot where people can go and remember her. And like, it's just like kind of like more like tidied and cared for. It just breaks your freaking heart to just think about all of that. Like I said, our researcher even drove to meet with some of Kei'Mani's friends who are having a memorial for her. And it's, that's the heartbreaking thing is that this baby, this beautiful little soul, she touched so many people that she didn't even know, she didn't even know that. And she should have been given the impact to have, to touch people, but still be here, and just like show like the love and happiness and do it through like just being so successful. I think one of the stories that touched me the most that I read that was shared with people who actually knew her. There were several stories shared, and one of them was one of her prior teachers, actually one of the teachers who like desperately tried to get child services involved. And she just, you know, was trying to describe who Kei'Mani is and have people remember that, like of who she really was. And she said that she was sweet, she was caring, she was generous. She would offer pieces of her breakfast to her teacher. She said she was a good, kind person. She was always seeking validation that she was good. She absolutely would be alive today if they had listened to our calls. Heartbreaking and beautiful all at once to like think of this little 13-year-old like wanting to share her breakfast with her teacher while she's also sharing with her teacher in different conversations, like the heartbreak and like abuse that she deals with, and then still worried about other people. A 13-year-old classmate also shared a memory of Kei'Mani, and she said she was really nice no matter what. Even if people kept messing with her or picking on her, she'd always be nice. I can't. I literally can't. I guess that's the important thing of sharing with these stories. Sometimes it's like are the hardest things because it makes it so much more real, which is important. And I do think that it's important to see that that is who Kei'Mani is and was and is remembered by those who knew her. A girl who offered, you know, pieces of her breakfast, a girl who wanted, you know, to be good and was asking if she was good, who was kind and who was nice even when others weren't. All around this, it's really all I can say is devastating, unfair. The way that this community has come together to love and honor her is something we can hold on to and like provide a little bit of comfort while we're demanding, you know, for better, not only for her, but for every child like her. That being said, I do feel like there's a whole lot more that is going to come out at trial. We know that this can take long. This could take years. So we will be keeping an eye out on this case and letting you know if there are any like major developments that come before trial or after or during. So for now, that's all we have. That's it for me today. I'm sending you all love right now. I know I need it. I need to go upstairs and go get a hug and maybe cry for a while. It's these cases are so hard, especially when it has to do with kids. So I hope you guys are doing okay. Your feelings are valid as well. I know like sometimes you're just like, oh, I didn't, you know, like I want to do more. I feel like I'm not doing enough. And even like getting kind of like emotionally invested, like even with the rage, again, that's valid. But there's so much going on here behind the scenes that we don't even know, right? And already like heated emotions and complicated family dynamics and stuff like that. So I don't want people participating, you know, like in like an angry mob and like pointing fingers and stuff like that, because it's so much easier to do when you are not being directly in the dynamic itself. I don't know what I'm trying to say, you guys. I'm spiraling. I love you all. I'm sending you big hugs, love. I will keep you updated on anything that happens. And let's just try to, I don't know, do good by this beautiful baby girl and just spread love and positivity, because that clearly is what she was. Oh, riddle answer. We need a moment. Quick refresher for anybody else who forgot. Today's riddle: what's orange and sounds like a parrot? And the answer is a carrot. It's cute. I needed the giggle. I hope you guys did too. I love you so much. I will see you in the next video. I will miss you terribly. Until then, make sure to love each other, love yourself, and I will see you soon. Bye.